Hey everybody, this is Vince Miller. Thank you so much for joining me for another devotional. Big shout out today to David Ambrose and all the men I spent this last weekend with in Houston. Fellas, it was great getting to know you. David, thanks for leading those men. And if this is your first time here, I hope you enjoy our time together. Today we're going to be in John chapter 8. I'm going to read verse 12. This follows the woman who just was caught in adultery that Jesus pardoned by grace. Jesus then says, again, he spoke to them saying, I am the light of the world. Whoever follows me will not walk in darkness, but will have the light of life. So fellas, if you've been following with me for a while, you may remember that back in John chapter 4, I mentioned that there were about 7 or 8 times in the Gospel of John where Jesus uses the phrase, I am, as he does right here in this text. He does this because, well, who he is of hot debate, and people need some clarification about this. So to bring clarity to their confusion, he's going to disclose some details. But most are going to miss these little nuggets because some divine events have not yet occurred. For example, like the resurrection, which is going to give all this insight and illumination. And what Jesus does right here is he uses the divine name of God, I am, or I exist, to describe himself to them. And then he follows it with a noun that gives it more description. This is called a predicate nominative. We read the first of these actually back in John chapter 6. It's the first I am statement with a predicate nominative. And it was, if you remember, Jesus declared, I am, and then he said, the bread of life. And the point that he made in that text was he is the ongoing sustenance, the food that provides humanity with life. Here we read the second. He states, I am the light of the world. So what is Jesus clarifying about himself in this instance? I hope you're catching the puns here. Just keep paying attention. Well, the word light here is being used as a metaphor. It's a metaphor used to describe the illumination of the mind. We call this understanding, right? This means that Jesus is clarifying that he's the clarity, the understanding that the world needs. And what is so ironic about the situation is that they're desperately confused about him, and he's trying to tell them who he is. But if we actually chase this metaphor throughout the Bible, we'll see something I think is absolutely incredible. For example, let's just go back to Matthew chapter 5, verses 14 through 15 in the teaching on the Sermon on the Mount. Jesus says something like this. He says, you are the light of the world. A city on a hill cannot be hidden, nor do people light a lamp and put it under a basket, but on a stand, and it gives light to all in the house. So what is Jesus saying in the Sermon on the Mount about life? Well, he declares here that as he illuminates our mind, we need to share this understanding with others. We shouldn't hide or conceal it. We should expose it. Then in the very next verse, Jesus states, in the same way, let your light shine before others so they may see your good works and give glory to your Father who is in heaven. And here, Jesus takes that same metaphor a step further. He clarifies that this illumination of our minds has a visible expression. It has good works that go with them. This is the illumination of our lives. We call this holiness or righteousness. This is living an illuminated life so that people can see God through us. But then the next question is, where do we get all this illumination from our lives? Well, Psalm 119, 105 is crystal clear about this. Here the psalmist declares something you already know that you probably have never put together with this before. It reads, your word is a lamp to my feet and a light to my path. How about that? We get illumination for our minds from God's word. But remember, Back in John chapter 1, in the very first verses we read in this study, we already discovered from John that Jesus is the Word. Remember it? It reads, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was with God in the beginning. All things were made through him, and without him was not anything made that was not made. In him was life, and the life was the light of men. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. Now, this is crazy kind of stuff right here. And I hope you see what Jesus is saying. He is saying this in this text. I am all the understanding you're ever going to need. But there is one more added detail here that I think is very illuminating. Tons of puns today, right? So remember, the Feast of Booths just came to an end. And during this feast, the priests lit giant candles that burned for 8 days on the temple grounds. They burned so bright, they lit up the night sky for miles and miles and miles. This feast has just come to an end, which means that the priests have extinguished the last candle. And now Jesus says this. Why does he say this? Well, because a new candle was lit. It was the life of Jesus that would light the sky till the end of time. So fellas, if you're looking for understanding today, remember this. Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and do not lean on your own understanding. In all your ways, acknowledge him, and he will make straight your paths. I love you guys. I pray this has blessed you today. If it has, share it with someone else and illuminate life today.